So this is how you remove the end of the throttle cable. You push this thing up and then this thing will just pop out. Then the next thing we'll do is we'll remove it off of the throttle cable mounts. Kind of wiggle, did you get that? Just wiggle that out. And then you come over here and you wiggle this one out. Try to wiggle it out on both sides. There we go. This one was kind of melted, so if you get that problem too, try to sandpaper this area out a little bit just for the future one. You gotta remove these two bolts. Once you remove the barrel from the other side of the throttle cable, you can come in here and you'll take this guy and you pull him out like so. You pull him out right away, right? Because now that there's no tension on here, you can pull it, no big deal, right? So the reason you pull this out is so then you can pull out this, pull this guy out too, and then you'll get to your final boss, who's this guy, right? So, I don't know if I can really show you this, but, oh, it just pops out. How nice. So, normally this thing just won't pop out very easily, but it latches onto this, to your accelerator pedal right there. And that has two little tabs right there. Usually you need a pair of pliers to pull them out, but I got lucky. Be very careful, they don't make this part. Anyway, so once that's off, you can take it off here. And then you just start removing this thing. Just keep wiggling them out and eventually it'll come through. So if you don't have a helper, you just come over here. Here's your cable. Wow. And oh, look what it got stuck on. So make sure to remove that thing before you go too far. This is already broken anyways, but I don't want to throw it away yet. So you can kind of just push him through here. He'll keep getting stuck on anything, which is okay. Then you just come back over here. And oh, here you are. Getting stuck again. And you just keep pulling them out. There's a little hole there. And eventually it'll all come out, and then you're up to the next step. I pulled on this thing a little bit, and then I started to just spin this thing. And you keep spinning and pulling, and it will just come off. Oh, fuck. Ooh. Yep, there it goes. This guy came off just like the other side. You just kind of pull and twist. Be careful of the inner cable will scratch your hands. But you need this guy. And then you need all of this part. All this stuff. Remember which way this goes, because you can't really, once you solder it on, you can't really take it off. Next step is you will actually cut this old cable, because you don't really need it anymore. I would just use a pair of cutters, but I forgot those. So what I'm going to use is this guy. That was a fantastic job I did there. Not my best idea cutting this with the mini angle grinder. Is that what they call it? Die cutter. I should have used a pair of pliers like these. That would have been way cleaner. But hey, you live and you learn. So, all right, next step is you get your new cable, right? Usually they already come with an end on it, but not always. What you're going to do is you're going to take your brand new cable from the kit and your old cable, and you're going to line them up together. We'll cut them so that your new cable is just a little bit longer, right? The reason we want it a little bit longer is because we're going to do some soldering later, and then we're going to cut it to spec then. But yeah, just a little bit longer. I'm going to go like about here, I guess, because that's how I feel. But it's pretty, actually I'm going to go like about 2 inches, because you can just cut it off the ends later. It's not really a big deal. And, ooh, come on. Wow, why did I use the angle grinder? Here are the ends of my original cable, right? So the kit doesn't come with any ends. We'll call them barrels or fuels or whatever. I'm going to call them barrels. The kit doesn't come with any of these barrels that match this, so I'm actually going to drill out the original cable and then plug them out, take out the barrels, and then use them on my new cable. Alright, so the next step is to cut this outer cable to size, but before we do, so here's the old cable, here's the new cable. Before we do though, there's a problem. This new cable has this little end cap on it that I really can't use, so we have to cut this off, and then we'll measure out it to the right length. The next step is you'll line up this with your new cable all the way here, and then mark where you're going to cut. You want to mark it to the same length, maybe just slightly longer than the original one. Also, when you're cutting it, don't cut it too fast. You want the nylon inside of there to be nice and circular. But when I was cutting it too fast like this, I kind of melted part of that nylon liner, and you really don't want to have that happen, because if you do, it's going to stick on your cables forever. So cut it nice and slow so you end up with something much more like this. And a little bit just going to happen, and smooth it out with some sandpaper later. So now we're going to take the ends here and we're going to sand them so they're nice and smooth on both sides. So this one's a little beat up too. I went kind of slow here, but I still got it a little bit chewed away, but you can get rid of that if you just sand it down. So I'm going to go use this fancy angle grinder with the little sanding disc, but sandpaper works just fine. I just don't want to use it because I don't have to. Now we got our main cable cut to length here. Now we need to dress it up like how our old cable was. The outer cable, which is what this is called, the inner cable is the thing that the actual throttle, the thing that moves in here. So this outer cable has a couple of protective layers over it, right? So this is just the main layer just to make sure the insides are all good. So you have your nylon deep inside, then you have your steel core that kind of helps it be flexible, and then this little plastic layer outside of it to give it some sort of protection, but they get more protection. So you got this really long layer here that pretty much goes all through. You can actually kind of tell why mine stopped working because it's all cracked off, but it goes all the way pretty much to the ends of the cable. It pretty much goes right up to the end pieces. So we need to remake that. How do we do that? So here we go. We got our own little cable here. And I just got this from Venhill, USA. I got all these parts from there. And we're going to go line it up with this, know how much we got to cut. Alright, so this cable here goes to about there. So we're going to take a pair of tin snips and we're going to cut this up. Alright, and then we're going to blow out any dust that might have got in here. And we will throw it on top of our other cable. Now, do you necessarily have to put this stuff on? Yeah, I'm not really too sure. But anything I can do to keep the heat from melting these things, because I think it's heat and age that destroy these things the most, the more I will do. Alright, so the next thing we got to do, that we got our protective coating on, is we got to put on these little couplers. Basically, this is parts where the throttle cable will mount to various brackets on the engine. We need to put these on along with these. Now I checked with my calipers and they're both about the same diameter. So we're going to use the same material for that, especially since these little guys are literally unobtainium. But we're going to go slide them on the cable as necessary in the same spots. Got this big thing right here, which is the same size. Now, I actually couldn't find any of this stuff at Venhill, so I had to go to McMaster for this, and basically just get some sort of tubing that can withstand engine car temperatures, which is about 300 degrees. Anything under that is going to melt, so there you go. I guess technically 250, but never can play it too safe, huh? So I'm having a hard time slipping on these engine mount part of the cable insulation onto the outer cable. So I've actually taken a little bit of this throttle lubricant just because it's around, but I'm sure any lube would really work. And I'm spraying just a little bit of the insides with it. There you go. Just so that there's a little bit of lube in here, because otherwise it'll just stick to the ends and you can't move this thing at all. I'm trying not to get too much lube in this. It's just a little bit we need. It is actually not too bad. Just slide it on through and get them in position. If anyone knows where I can buy these little couplers or bushings or whatever you call them, let me know. I can't find them anywhere. So I'm getting this little cotter pin, just trying to smooth out any of the edges here that might be a little rough. Do I really need to do this? Yeah, probably not, but you know, it certainly helps. It certainly can't hurt. Alright, so I got the outer cable mounts on them. And if I actually lined these up, it's kind of bent, so it's kind of hard to get accurate, but if I actually lined them up, you'd see that they're all in the right place. I did have to use a little bit of lube to get them on, but that should just dry off after being in the engine a lot, and then these things are pretty much never going to be able to move again. Alright, so now we're going to get our throttle cable ends starting to get squared away. So this is what went on the accelerator pedal side, this thing. Now how do you make your cable fit in here, right? Well, I had a pair of calipers, and this is a 7mm cable. So I went on Amazon and I bought a 7mm drill bit. And all I did was I basically I didn't even use a drill tool, but I just very carefully kind of turned this around and made sure it could fit this. A little bit of gunk got out, but not too much. Don't go too crazy with it though, because there actually is plastic acting as like a stop of sorts, and you really don't want to cut that up because that's just going to do you hurt. But there really wasn't any way on the accelerator cable side to hold this in other than just pressure, and clearly it held in 30 years, so that's just fine. But if we go over here to the end that goes to the cruise control for mine, although it might go to the throttle body for yours, whatever, doesn't really matter. Well, they dimpled it right here. You can even see it looks like they might have used like a tool to crunch it in. So how do you get it in with those dimples? Because this just ain't gonna fit. You can even see the old cable has the marking still where those dimples went. Since I got I know it's a 7mm cable, I can use this, and I'm gonna drill out that to 7mm again. And then once I put this back on, I'm going to hit it with a couple of punches so it'll still have those little dimples. And yeah, we lost a very minor amount of material, but it's going to be just fine. Just trying to go nice and slow with it. Don't need to go fast. Alright, so I got both ends on. For the firewall side, I really just kind of pushed it in and was like turning it counterclockwise, and eventually just kind of slid in all the way. And there's a stop, it won't just come out all the way to the end. It can only go so far. So that's in, and that's cool. And then on this side, same thing. I use a little harder to get in, so I use a little bit of my throttle lube, but really it's the same thing. It might be worth going to like a 7.1mm drill bit, which I think is like 7/16 or something. I'll put it in the YouTube thing later, but it's on too, so we're ready for the next part, the inner cable. Alright, one thing to note here, that the kit came with a 6mm barrel or fuel or something. I'm just going to call it a barrel. Alright, come on, get in focus. This came with a 6mm one, however mine that came with the car originally is a 7mm. I'm going to hope and pray that the 6mm will still work, but if not, you'll see me work on that too. One thing to note too that I didn't realize until I bought everything is the original OEM cable had this little piece of, I'm assuming that's Teflon. Had a little piece of Teflon right here, and another aftermarket cable I bought that actually melted had like a little spring right here too. Hopefully it doesn't matter, at least for the next decade or so I'm going to own the car. I'm assuming this isn't what made it last 30 years, but you know, so maybe buy that if you can figure out what the hell that is. This is a 2mm cable, but yeah, there we go. So the cable end goes in just as smoothly as you'd think. Come on. You literally just put it through and it feeds through. Don't need to lube it or anything, that's what the Teflon is for. Alright, for some reason, after I threaded it in all the way, there you go, I couldn't get this thing to go through this guy, right? Which is weird. A little piece of crap was still in there because when I drilled them out earlier, there was still a little bit left in, so keep that in mind. So there's even more junk in here. So yeah, this side of the hole is, you know, 7mm for the whole outer cable there. But this side of the hole, it's big, but there's like a little choke point deep inside here, and it's probably like 4mm or something. I grabbed a bit that was just big enough to go through that center part, because you know, if you took the whole 7mm one and drilled it through, well, that would be bad, because then that choke would be gone and this cable would go through all the way. But I used this drill bit to clean out that middle spot, and now it'll flow. This cable will flow through freely. We got this part in. I still need to add the little dimples here, but that shouldn't be too hard a punch, and a pair of vice grips should get that good. And got the outside of the cable done, got this side done, but oh, what about the end piece here? So you can't just reuse the old barrel, right? As fun as that would be, it's basically impossible to drill those suckers out. Yeah, it turns out when you try to drill stainless steel wire out of basically lead, that you chew up everything except the stainless steel, so it was destroyed. I guess if you were a machine shop you could, but let's be honest, boys, no machine shops looking up this video. So we're going to show you how to make one. Now, we probably could just use one of those cramp-on ones to go lock it in, but I don't want to do that. That was plan B, so I'm going to show you how to solder one together. So I don't know where the end barrel went. I can't find the remains of it, but it was 14mm, I think. Yeah, it was 14mm, and 14mm is about like 0.55 of an inch, which is this almost the exact same as a 9/16 drill bit. Yay for that. So we're basically going to drill a hole. So, and it was about that deep, and frankly it doesn't really matter how deep it is. Well, basically what we're going to do is we're going to put molten lead in there, and then we're gonna put molten lead in this one, and then we're gonna stick this through right through the center, and when it cools down, well, we're good to go. But this guy isn't good enough yet. We still have to open up the end so it can actually be usable. A little bit more back. And we're gonna take this guy, and we're going to unwind him slightly. Now, why are we doing this, huh? Well, basically speaking, we need to have it unwound a little bit so that when we actually go out there to use this thing, or when the lead attaches to it, it'll have plenty of surface area to grab onto. Because if we don't do it, it won't be enough. Ooh, I'm not even showing you anymore, huh? That's pretty good to me. If you want to make a puddle of lead, you need to get flux. Why? Lead or whatever solder, plumbing solder is made out of nowadays. It can't attach to things unless it has its flux buddy around. So, just gonna get that hole nice and dirty. Oh yeah, ooh man, looking good. Drop them in. Get in there. So, I think lead probably works the best for this, but lead is basically impossible to find in stores because if you eat it, you die. And like, you know, pretty much no one's using lead anymore. You can get it for some soldering companies, but like not like plumbing solder, right? Because for whatever reason, plumbing solder is different than electrical solder. Probably because it's more structural, I guess. Either way, so if you do want to get lead plumbing solder, you're probably going to have to look online for it. Alright, it's a pretty good amount. Probably need more than that, and then we'll just throw in a bunch of flux. Ooh. Get in there. Yeah, buddy. Can never have enough. Put a little bit of flux on the end of our cable too. Alright, so I wasn't recording any of that, but basically, don't use a freaking torch. These things blow out all the time. What you want to use is a 100-watt soldering iron. That thing melted it so quick. It's fantastic. And then once it got melted, I mean, it literally took like 5 seconds, guys. It was a joke. Compare like the 20 seconds in burning of that. Then you just stick this in when it's molten hot. Ooh, man, my cable's getting hot just holding it. And guess what? Now you're good to go. Once this cools down, you're going to have your throttle cable back. Alright, so I pulled it out, and here it is in all of its glory. Still somewhat molten. I probably should have just cut it out, but I got impatient. But, yeah, believe it or not, that'll hold. Yeah, boy! No more stuck cable for this guy. So if you have it where cable's too loose, which happened to me, or if it's too tight, basically this thing will be able to just wobble around, which mine currently is a little bit, but seems to be just good enough. So, especially in this direction, you don't want there to be any wobble. I don't really know. Point is, if it feels really loose, right? Mine's still a little loose, but hey, man, it still works, so whatever. You can adjust this guy. So if it's too loose, you adjust him this way, and if it's too tight, you adjust him that way, and get a little bit more clearance. But if the end of it, but if it doesn't fit, you'll have to cut off one of the ends, and I'd probably choose what I already made, and you'd have to make it, you know, like a 1/4 of an inch shorter or something, and then you'll be good to go. In case you were wondering, so here's where the end piece goes, and that's the first engine mount. Here is the second one, and this one actually, I did it wrong, but this one goes in that hook right there. And yeah, and that third one, or the final one right there, it's supposed to hold the speedometer cable, I think, but it has since broken off long ago. It's been about a week that I put this thing on. Cat, can you push the pedal down? Can you release it? Can you keep doing it? So it's been about a week since I've actually replaced this thing, this throttle cable, and let me show you how it's been holding up. Not so good here. Oh my gosh. So over here you can see it's working pretty good. Hey Cat, can you stop for a second? It's been pretty good, you know. Although it does still catch a little bit. Can you do it one more time? Release. Yeah, it's still a little janky right here, but it's certainly way better than what it used to be. And if you come, why don't you come out here, Cat? I'll show you this too. So as we walk around, this is the main layer, right? Here is the first protective layer. And then here's those big engine mount points I had, right? As you can tell, it didn't quite hold up above the exhaust, but when you're not by the exhaust, it looks just fine. So I'm probably gonna have to redo this. And you see that birdie right there? Mm-hmm. You see how it literally just crumbled. Yeah, so as good as Venhill is, yeah, probably have to redo this. So, although it still holds good enough for now. I don't understand how it instantly got rusty. That might not even actually be rust. I'm not really too sure. That could just be like the molten plastic on there. Yeah, but that's not really the greatest sign of all time, and you know, but so yeah, but it does work. And occasionally it will catch, but certainly we'll have to try a little bit better materials next time. I actually think what's going to work next time, Birdie, is we're going to have to take a Toyota 6th gen cable and cut it to size. That might be better.